Americans have a pretty unfortunate relationship with food. And our relationship with food is give me the biggest pile of food you can give me for the cheapest amount of money. I mean, that's it. That's why we have burritos that are the size of a shoe. It's not about the burrito tasting good. It's about the size of the burrito.
You just heard Matthew DeBoard, founder and CEO of NewGem Foods. Matthew is changing our relationship with food for the better. NewGem Foods creates patented, plant-based wraps that help us make more fun and healthy meals. Let's find out how Matthew started this journey in Japan and where his company NewGem Foods is heading.
You have a great product, Mr.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have a daughter who is so finicky about anything. And I said, hey, I want you to try this. And she's like, okay. And so she said, I only have 7 foods I like. Now I have 8.
I'm going to use that when I talk to her.
Made me so happy because we had just gone to Chipotle like a week ago, and she said it was horrible, the steak that they had there. She said she wanted to make her own. So she put that in a wrap with like lettuce and cucumbers and Chipotle dressing. And she was just having a great time. She said it felt so much better in her stomach. You know, we're like believers, Matthew. This thing, it's commonplace to you, but you know, I have a son who's 14 and he was just loving it too. And I asked him, how much do you love it? He loved it so much. He said, no comment.
That's awesome. My son's a little picky because he's allergic to all nuts. We don't eat out in restaurants too much and stuff because it's really difficult. We eat at home quite a bit. If we go traveling or if we go do something or we go do a demo, he's just always eating the samples. He's like, can I eat samples? I'm like, we need those samples for the customers, you know?
Oh my goodness. What I want to get into with you, because it's like without your backstory, it doesn't do justice to the current story. Tell us, how does this all-American guy speak Japanese? Lay that on us first.
I went to university to study finance and economics. I'm a bit older than people might imagine. And so when in college in the 1980s, it was all Japan Inc. If you're studying business and you're studying economics, it was all about, you know, Peter Drucker and what he did for Japan and manufacturing in Japan. And then they bought Rockefeller Center, a Japanese company. They bought Pebble Beach. They were buying a lot of assets. Japan Inc. is kind of the term people used. Just a little bit of information about the household I grew up in. It was all about education. And the reason for that was to be employable. After graduating and having Japan be so prominent in economic and business environment, I felt that if I went to Japan and learned to speak Japanese and learned more about the Japanese business, I would be employable. And so that was the motivation. I graduated from university. I traveled. My buddy and I did a backpack trip through Asia and we visited Japan. It was interesting. It was unintentional, but we got stuck there. And yeah, came home and I did some other stuff. I worked on a fishing boat in Alaska. And then I was able to get a job teaching English in Japan because I couldn't go there unless I had a job because I didn't have any money. So I got a job teaching English. I did that and I took private Japanese lessons to get to a level to where I could get into a Japanese language school. And so then I got into the Japanese language school, and the objective of the language school is to get to a level where you can pass a test to enter Japanese universities. And I never wanted to go to university there, but I wanted to achieve that level of language. Unfortunately, I ran out of money. I'm always running out of money. So I ran out of money and I had to get a job. And so I got a job just in the nick of time, literally. And so I got a job working at a Japanese publishing company, an educational publishing company. It really was a sales company. And so then essentially all I did was speak Japanese for 2 years. I was the first foreign employee that they ever hired. It was a $1.5 billion door-to-door sales company. Really, really fascinating company to work for and experience. And that's where my language really developed. I had to speak Japanese all the time. Because I had to leave school, my reading skills didn't really develop. It's an interesting thing. You can word process it if you can speak it and you can recognize the characters. I can't read it. If you gave me a book, I couldn't read it.
Well, I would never have known that because I'm focusing on the fact that this is the 90s now where you're getting all this approval from the Japanese business people because they were not just going to make you feel like you were legit just because they wanted to make you feel good. You must have impressed them to get entry into this company.
I had a friend who worked at the school I worked at who started to work for them, and they were developing a children's English language school program. They would convert like a store, small strip center storefront, or even apartments, or even homes that were available to rent, and they would convert those into classrooms. And my friend got a job working for them. Through that connection, the company hired me.
Wow. And so now you are at this college level speaking. You're very useful at this company. Fast forward today, you have a amazing nutritional wrap product out of Washington State. So I mean, connect these 2 points for us because it's hard for a person to understand.
Yeah, it is. It is. I won't go too much into depth, but I didn't really understand food until I lived in Japan. Now, my mother was an amazing cook, and I loved her cooking, and she was incredible. But Americans have a pretty unfortunate relationship with food, and our relationship with food is give me the biggest pile of food you can give me for the cheapest amount of money. I mean, that's it. That's why we have burritos that are the size of a shoe. It's not about the burrito tasting good, it's about the size of the burrito. What I learned in Japan is appearance is important, flavor is important, texture is important. Nobody in America thinks about texture. Through this development of my own understanding of food, I began to appreciate seaweed. There are many healthy, flavorful items in Japan that are wrapped in seaweed. I wanted those things when I returned to America, but Americans don't like seaweed. So then I was thinking while I was living in Japan, well, how can you get these healthy items made with seaweed to Americans? And one day while walking to work, I just had an epiphany. Onigiri is the item that really drove the concept. And it's a $6 billion a year item in Japan. They cost about $1.50. And 7-Eleven Japan has 200 factories around the country to deliver these to convenience stores morning, noon, and night. And so the idea was, well, I can make Americanized onigiri if I can make a tomato wrap or a carrot wrap or a spinach wrap. And that's where the concept came from. I came back from Japan to go to graduate school. And then I actually worked for the Japanese company in LA. They asked me to open an office in Los Angeles. And in that process, it just kept percolating in the back of my head. And so finally I decided to do it. So I quit and moved back to Northern California and moved in with my sister and her husband. And I started doing kitchen chemistry. And then I found out that the USDA has a program to help people develop food products. It's called the Agricultural Research Service. So I did kitchen chemistry and it was horrible. I made basically carrot styrofoam. It was horrific. So I took this carrot and tomato styrofoam to the USDA. I said, "Hey, this is my idea. This is where I got the idea. This is what I want to do. I'm not a food engineer chemist. Could you help me?" The research leader, her name was Dr. Tara McHugh. She said she would take me on as a creative partner, public-private partnership. It's called a Cooperative Research and Development Agreement. I didn't have money, but I had me. And she said, "Okay, well, do the experiments in the lab and we'll help you develop the product." I worked with them for 4 years. We developed the product in about a year. It took about a year to get the patents approved. And when you're filing for patents, you have to be in stealth mode. You can't publicly disclose them or else you can't get the patent. So while we were doing the patents, I went through the process of developing more flavors, and then we had to figure out how to produce it. So we developed the production technology because nobody could produce them. It didn't exist. And so I couldn't go to somebody else and have them contract manufacture for me because no one made this, because we created the product and the process to make it.
That is amazing. I saw a picture of that doctor on a device, like popping out those wraps.
Yeah, that was a it was a little pilot scale machine that they purchased to help do the development. I actually had to modify that machine to make it work.
Now you modified it. What'd you do to it? I'm like hearing all these different skills that you have. What did you do with your genius self on this machine?
I just had to get some stuff fabricated and add it to the machine on the front end and on the back end to get it to do what I wanted it to do. And that's just growing up having to fix everything, right? I used to say, "Oh, I grew up poor," but no way. I've seen poor, so I've changed it. So I say I grew up budgeted. Uh, so when you don't have a lot of money, you fix everything. We grew up fixing all of our cars, our bicycles, our lawnmowers. I knew what the machine wasn't doing. I knew what I wanted it to do. And then I took drafting in high school. So I just drafted up what I needed. And then I went to a local fabricator and had him make what I wanted made.
Wow. So I'm here to give a testimonial too because I've tried your wraps and my kids have tried your wraps. I can't describe it in a professional way, of course, but in a layperson's way. After you eat it, you feel satisfied, but it's not this like over full feeling. Is that a coincidence or what's the deal there?
That's kind of the objective. Again, going back to Japan, when I was living there, and you eat this really healthy, flavorful food and you don't feel heavy. You feel satiated, but not heavy. Where here, you're going to eat this burrito and you're going to want to take a 3 hour nap. And that's what I learned. If you make food flavorful and satiating and healthy with fiber instead of a lot of sugar, you're better off. Yeah, you had the experience that we want people to have with our products, and that's exactly why we made it. And then the beauty of it is when you eat one of those applewood smoked tomato wraps, you're actually getting a small tomato in that wrap. I always tell people it's like it's really easy to eliminate 300 calories out of your lunch. Use a tomato wrap and not a tortilla.
Yep. And so now this is where people need to know what this idea involved into New Gem Foods. What is it? It's been existing since 2004, but you are New Gem Foods. So tell us what it is.
And that's the company that I started from developing the products at the USDA. I created the business in 2004 when I started working with the USDA and worked with them for 4 years. And then in 2008, we got a loan from a government program to build our first production facility. And from 2008, we started selling our wraps to replace seaweed on sushi. And we make lots of different flavors for that: barbecue, pineapple habanero, mango chipotle, carrot ginger, lemon. We started the business that way. Wegmans is our best customer. They've been using our sushi wraps for nearly the whole time, at least 11 years. We have a couple of restaurant chains that use them. But I very quickly learned that being a component of somebody else's product is a precarious business structure. A few years into the business, we developed the sandwich wraps to replace bread and tortillas. We first launched it exclusively on the Home Shopping Network, and we got some feedback that they were too tough. So we went back to the R&D and we reformulated it and made it softer. And then we basically launched it again about a year later. And I've just been trying to grow the business since. We've had some bumps in the road. We did partner with a company and moved to the state of Washington. And then that partner sold themselves and that caused some havoc. And so then we had to move again to a different building. We moved to another facility in the state of Washington. And now we've just been trying to get ramped up and get people to know that our product is out there and grow. Safeway has been a really good partner for us. We've been growing in their stores, and Rayleigh's is going to bring us on. And we're looking forward to more retailers.
I'm wondering why this thing is not like worldwide. You're like in a class by yourself with this. I mean, when will competitors be able to start trying to copy you?
People have come out with cassava flour tortillas, the cauliflower sandwich thins, and then there's egg crepes and all these other things. So people are trying to compete with us. They're not as good as ours. They're all refrigerated. They're all one trick ponies. And what they do is they take their egg crepe and they add pepper to it to try and make a different flavor. Our tomato wrap is tomato. Our carrot wrap is carrot. Our mango wrap is mango. Our apple wrap is apple. That's the big difference. And that's our patent. Retailers are, their business is dollars per square foot. It's how many, how much can we sell from this square foot of real estate every day? They don't like unknowns. They're very risk averse to unknown things. And if you come in with a new innovative product that they've never seen before, they are hyper risk averse. And then they don't know what to do with you. We'll go talk to the dry goods buyer and we'll say, hey, this is a replacement for bread and tortillas. And they'll say, well, you're not really a bread and a tortilla, really. You're made from fruits and vegetables. You should talk to the produce guy. And then we talk to the produce buyer and we say, well, we got this new wrap. It would do really well in the produce section. It's made from fruits and vegetables. They say, well, you're not really like a fresh tomato or a lemon. You're more like a wrap. You should be in the deli with the sliced meat and cheese. And so then we go, okay. So then you go talk. This has happened to me for years. This is what I've been going through for years. So then you go talk to the deli buyer and you say, hey, we've got this new great wrap that can replace bread and tortillas, and it's healthier and it's better for you, gluten-free and keto, and it meets all these criteria. And they say, well, you're not really sliced cheese and meat. You're really more like bread and tortillas. You should go talk to the dry goods guy. This circle of, go talk to the other guy because I don't know what to do with you. But we did get the Safeway deli buyers. There was one buyer, Michelle Steele, who brought us on in Intermountain. And she said, I love this product. I absolutely have to have it. And she got us into the stores and we've been doing really well. And then the buyer in Oregon brought us on. Then she got promoted and the new buyer came in and she's exceptionally supportive. And so we have this very supportive group of deli buyers that are starting to get us out there. We just need more people to know that we exist.
That's what this podcast will contribute to. I mean, but it's like you have already done so well. I just know just putting it in my system just made me a believer. I mean, the taste was extremely good, but then the after effects you can feel on yourself just as a whole better experience. So, I mean, I congratulate you. It just takes such stick to itiveness to do what you've done.
It has been an unbelievable, brutal battle. I mean, just about 18 months ago, maybe a little more, I was able to put an advisory board together, and that's made a huge difference because I made so many mistakes, and surviving with all the mistakes is a blessing. But the advisory board, one of the gentlemen, he started his own business and then sold it. And I was having a conversation with him, and he said, it's bloody hand-to-hand combat. That's kind of the best description of what it means to start a CPG business and manufacture your own product and get it into the stores. I mean, it is just bloody hand-to-hand combat. People that do it, there's something wrong with us. But
CPG, consumer packaged goods. It seems like it's so easy to us customers. We go in the store and we just take it off the rack or the shelf. We don't think about all the challenges and the hurdles that are overcome to get it there.
you see people on Shark Tank and they're like, oh, I just went into Whole Foods and talked to the buyer and they brought it in. And that it's not that easy. And a lot of those people are contract manufacturing things. If you have your own manufacturing facility, you're basically running two businesses here, a manufacturing business and a CPG business.
Your amazing story wouldn't be complete unless I remind you of like a couple things that stand out about you that I've learned, Matt. You made a statement that really stuck with me. You said, we don't really understand a lot of things because you said to me, you can go to Japan and there's a gravestone with someone who died 2,000 years ago. What you mean?
Living abroad in another country and looking at America from another country's perspective makes you look at America differently. I love America. I really do. Land of the free, home of the brave. And it's given me all the opportunities that I have. But there are problems. And culturally, we are just immature. You go to Japan and they've been doing things and celebrating things for thousands and thousands of years. And you realize how immature our culture is. And we need to have things that have value. They value people, they value tradition. They have different things like the kimono, how to tie the kimono. That's something that's very important to their culture. How they do tea. They have a tea ceremony. And I just don't see that depth of culture in America, and I think it would be great to have it. As I said, it was very enlightening to me. I would have been there for thousands of years, and there'd be a grave marker that was before Columbus landed in the Caribbean. It was just like, wow.
I love hearing that story. That just stuck with me because we here in the States, we can have a closed view. And I know the thing that hits me the worst is when someone immigrates and I get to know them. And then after a few years, they're just like us. I'm like, no.
Yeah, a friend invited me to the local temple because New Year's is the important holiday for them. And so it was New Year's, and they stayed up, and you can line up and you can ring the bell at the temple and make a wish for the next year. And I get in line and I get up there and I swing this thing and I'm ringing this bell. That big piece of wood and the bell has probably been there 1,000 years.
Mm.
And I don't really know if this is the right word. I hear people use this word a lot. They say cathartic. I don't know if that applies, but it just really hit my soul, right? It's just like, wow.
And that told me a lot about you. I know it's going to tell our listeners a lot about you and make us look at ourselves in the mirror, those of us who are from the States, in the States, and be informative to people listening at other parts of the world. But then you have to add that with the fact of who you married and where she's from and what culture that you are also a part of now.
Once you experience other cultures, it becomes a necessity. You have to go experience it. And so I was very lucky that I met my wife through the USDA. Actually, my father-in-law is a PhD food engineer, chemist. I was at the USDA and he got a job after I started there. And then through all of us getting together and doing barbecues and stuff, I got introduced to his daughter and we ended up getting married. So yeah, my wife is from Mexico. I love having that part of our household. My children are half Mexican, and when I'm at my in-laws, they speak Spanish a lot and we have lots of delicious food. I grew up refried beans out of a can, and when you make them fresh and boil them on the stove all day long and then mash them up, they're just delicious by themselves.
Would it be too private to ask you what influence that she has had on you as you grow New Gem?
She's just been a foundation. I could not have made it without her. She's always there to support. She goes to trade shows. She'll go to demos. She'll do whatever needs to be done to make this thing a success for our family and our children. And she believes in it. She's the one who's been working and helping pay our bills and get medical coverage and all those good things. And I mean, she has been just the number one supporter. And it is a little bit frustrating for me because people don't recognize that there's a Mexican woman who's equally as important as me in this business, but they don't see her, right?
Well, I know just talking to you, it's obvious to me that she's there. I read a post of yours where you had said that you were with your wife's family and you were eating the food and you said that was your family. And I said that was nice because they've embraced you and you've embraced them back.
Yeah, again, it's just something that I think is lacking in America. And it was really funny because my wife was talking about somebody and she said, "Oh, it's my auntie." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. I've met all your aunties and that's not one of them." And she said, "Oh, in Mexico, we just call everybody who's a close friend, our auntie or our cousin or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "Yeah, that's just what we do. That's our culture." And interestingly, it's the same in Japan, where if you're at a restaurant, you want to get the waitress's attention. In Japan, you don't say, "Oh, hey, you," like we do in America. You, you call her auntie. It's just a very polite way of calling her. You go, hey, auntie, can I have a question or something. Or you call her older sister, right? So if you want to be really nice to the lady, you call her an older sister. So it's just that culture, right? Where it's much more familial and friendly and, everybody wants to see everybody do well. And they're always willing to lend a helping hand. And My wife, she taught me a Mexican phrase that I like, and she said, "We have a phrase in Mexico that, and this is around meals, and it's like if there's enough for three, there's enough for four, and if there's enough for four, there's enough for five, and so on." And it's
Mm,
just that's their mentality, right?
right. It's nice to see you adopt those different cultural mentalities because you could have been closed minded and said, "Hey, I'm good," and then not really have tried. But you seem to have a humble heart, and these things are like encouraging you.
My household was very encouraging of education, and that could be a lot of things, right? I'm the youngest of seven, and so my parents were older, and they were a part of World War II. So Japan was the enemy, right? When I was telling my parents that I wanted to go live in Japan and study the Japanese language, they were so encouraging. They're like, "Yeah, you got to go do that. That's going to be great for you." And so I also think part of my openness was developed in my household.
So now we as a public want to support New Gem Foods. Tell us how we can do it.
The number one thing is buy the product when you see it at the stores. If it's not in the store, ask for it to be into the store. All the retailers care about is what's called velocity, and that's just how many units are you selling every week. If you don't have velocity, you're not going to stay in that store. And then post on it. That's the other thing is it's called user generated content, and that's what everybody is doing now. I mean, if you buy our product and you make something with it, you post it up on Instagram, connect it to us, make a TikTok video, everything you can to spread the word about how good our products are.
That's going to be a highlight there. And the folks that listen to us all know about digital media. So we're going to do that. I know I posted my first experience cooking with your wraps. Just in a short time, it had over 300 views, and some were overseas that have asked me about it. But I put all the links in there for them to follow up and learn more about it. I've been talking it up. So I know if that's just me, that multiplied by many, many more will do wonders.
And part of my motivation too, and what was interesting for the USDA is we have an obesity problem. And if you can address that, you can have a lunch and remove 300 calories. You could have a dinner and remove 300 calories. And that was one of the reasons why the USDA was interested in helping me. They have these different mandates, and one of them is to get more consumption of fruits and vegetables. And so this is a pretty easy way to do that. And I really appreciate your testimonial for our products because that's what we have to do. We just need more people to try it, spread the word, and understand what it does and what it can be used for.
I am so thankful to be of use, and basically we are now known as the Protect Podcast. The work that we're doing is something that we think is changing lives. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you because I had researched a lot about New Gem Foods. And I'm like, this is something that is impactful to the average person. And I'm even more convinced of that now, like 1,000 times.
What we developed is actually what they call a platform technology. And there's actually many applications for our wraps. And that's another thing that's different than the competitors out there. You can use our product, like, as you know, for sushi and then sandwiches. But there's another product that I sell. Wegmans has been using it for about 10 or 11 years, and it's a glaze sheet. And so it's an apple based film with honey maple flavoring, and we sell it to a ham processor and they wrap it around a spiral cut ham, and then it hydrates into a healthy glaze on that ham instead of a corn syrup based or a brine based glaze. This is an apple puree based glaze, which is much healthier. And then there's other things you can do with our wraps. You can actually heat seal them. I make these things for me when I'm traveling. I like to eat trail mix and sunflower seeds, but it's not safe to eat them when you're driving. And so I actually make little barbecue pouches filled with sunflower seeds or trail mix. You can then just eat the whole package. And that way you can eliminate plastic from some of our packaging out there and get that out of the environment too.
Whoa. I don't know what it is, but like I'm in my 50s now, and it's probably been like 7 or 9 years since I've really eaten bread on a regular basis. I could feel it going through my system like slow as molasses.
One of my advisors said, he's like, I'd be curious to know how many meals at Chipotle are bowls. And I actually was able to find it really easily. It's 2/3 of all meals at Chipotle are bowls. And then the CEO said that there is a continual slow migration away from burritos. And then one of my other advisors, he said, look, I want sandwiches, but I just don't want the bread anymore. And and so you just see that more and more, right? People are migrating away from these, I call them nutritionless, heavy carb tortillas and bread. I mean, it's just sugar with no nutrition.
NewGem is filling a space and it should become very prominent in our society. I can't see Gen Z just tolerating the status quo. Do you find any resistance in some generations?
Not so much resistance. It's something new they've never seen before, but there's a group of people of all ages that are trying to improve their health. It's a big deal. People want to live healthy lives. They want to avoid disease. They want to maintain weight. Celiac disease and the number of people that have gluten intolerance. And then you've got diabetics. I mean, diabetes is a huge problem. I have some cholesterol issues, and so I have to be careful with what I'm eating. And that's where our product really helps is you can help people eat healthily very easily. And it's all demographics, really. I'm always talking about all of these health benefits, but they taste good. And what you make with it tastes good. My favorite recipes is the caprese, which is on the tomato package. I'm not going to make that with bread. It's going to be gross, but it's absolutely delicious in our wrap.
So we know newgemfoods.com. You're also on LinkedIn, Matthew DeBoard, DE space BORD, where we can connect to you and tag you when we're making these posts about our experiences. And what would be some final words, Matthew, that you'd like to leave with people who really want to be part of your journey?
Buy the product and share your experiences with our product. I mean, good or bad. If you didn't like it, let us know, because then we're going to fix that. We just have to let more people know. And if you can get the word out and let people know what you did with the product, what you made with it, why you like it, that's really what's going to help us succeed and get it into more households and more people that need it, more regions. Things like you, Gene, you just found me and researched me, and with your kindness, you asked me to do this podcast. It's actually the first podcast I've ever done.
No way.
I've never done a podcast. I'd like to be on them and get the word out. I just want to thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast.
I am so satisfied after this conversation, and I just can't wait for people to tune in. And we have a beautiful thing with our community that they like to hear these things. They're welcoming to these great messages, and your message resonates. I mean, it's not just a product, it's like a life story, really. It's life changing. There's going to be a lot of people who try the product and they're just going to be amazed at the rejuvenation that they feel. It tastes good, but it does good stuff. So it's almost like a social service for us to bring you to people's attention. I'm proud to have you here.
Thank you very much.